What is happening, everybody? This is Christian with the game division here at Hackingtons Code School for Kids, and I am big into indie games. So I want to show you my top 5 indie games made with Unity Engine. Hearthstone. I always mispronounce this game. I call it Hearthstone all the time. But this is not actually an indie game. Spoiler alert. Indie games really mean that they're small teams making games that tend to have something a little bit different. They have the opportunity to go off on a limb and do something that's never been done before, make art that hasn't ever been seen before, and do other interesting things. That's why I really like indie games. But I chose Hearthstone because what's interesting about it is that it is a game made by one of the biggest game producers out there. Blizzard Activision, Overwatch, Diablo, StarCraft, other such games as World of Warcraft. And the long and the short of it is they could have done anything that they wanted to. But what they did is they created Hearthstone using the Unity engine. And I wanted to say that that is a real good indicator of how powerful the Unity engine is for pretty much any type of project. So just because indies tend to use the Unity engine doesn't mean that it isn't a big deal. Anybody can use the engine, including huge AAA studios. But Hearthstone is unique because it's a really interesting card game. So if you've never played a card game before, there's so much strategy involved. The strategy happens before the game when you're making a deck. It happens during the game when you're reacting to what's been played. It's all topped off with a little bit of randomness. So sometimes you just get the luck of the draw and sometimes you don't. Super addictive gameplay, lots of fun to collect the cards. Maybe be careful, don't get addicted too hard. But check out Hearthstone if you want to see a AAA studio make a indie game.
Outer Wilds. Now, Outer Wilds is one of those ones that's kind of hard to describe. First of all, it's a handcrafted solar system. So if you could imagine actually like grabbing a telescope and being able to see planets that are orbiting you regularly and appropriately, you could actually see what's happening on those planets. And if you're intrigued by it, you can go to those planets. So much of it feels organic and natural, and there's so much mystery and intrigue that it's really about that exploration aspect. And with exploration comes uncertainty and fear. In playing this game, you explore these emotional states where you're isolated and alone and you're on this foreign planet away from support. And what happens if all of a sudden your ship breaks down and now you're trapped? Or what happens if your spacesuit helmet gets a crack and now you're bleeding oxygen and you're just floating and the inevitability is crushing upon you? It's just hard to explain so much what this game evokes from you in terms of how you play it. So you got to check out Outer Wilds if you enjoy that exploration aspect, if you want to follow the mystery, if you want to learn what's happening, then check it out. Donut County. Now, I chose Donut County because it's a perfect example of how you can take a really interesting game mechanic, in this case, being a hole. So as a player moving a hole around, what you do is you drop smaller objects into it, which grows the hole, so you can drop bigger objects into it. And over time, eventually you've got the whole city falling into your holes. It's just fun to do this, to drop things into it. It's not a huge production, but it's beautiful, it's well executed, it's extraordinarily polished. It's one of the things that demonstrates how you can take a simple mechanic, partner it with beautiful art like cel-shaded toon-style animations, and polish it up until it's a perfected experience. And by the way, it does answer the question of like, what if you are a raccoon who's obsessed with trash and you want to teleport it somewhere? Overcooked. Overcooked has to be one of my favorite couch co-op games of all times. Couch competitive games like Smash Bros. Or Mario Kart, they're classics, they're awesome, they're amazing, but when you actually have to work with the person and not compete with them sitting next to you, it becomes a little bit different. In fact, this game explores that dynamic of communication and setting of roles and setting of expectations. And not only that, but learning how another person does their work, so that way when you need to jump into their spot, you actually already have an intuition about how they were about to do it themselves. It's an amazing experience. Overcooked is also one of the very first Unity games that really, for me, was like, oh wow, look at what they did with that. And then, of course, there's Overcooked 2 now, and you can actually play over the network, for example, so no more couch co-op, but you can play with your friends. It is a great example of how level design and gameplay mechanics work together to create an amazing experience. Now, I don't know what to say other than you got to try it to understand it, because if you play it alone, it's not about that. It's about figuring out how to work with others. So give it a try, see how you like it. Ori and the Blind Forest. Now, I actually took a minute to decide what to actually choose for the platformer category, Ori and the Blind Forest or Hollow Knight. I ended up choosing Ori and the Blind Forest simply because I've played more of it. Now, I'm not saying anything bad about Hollow Knight. I really, really like Hollow Knight as well. And try them both, make up your own mind, enjoy it. But Ori is such a beautiful, beautiful game. It is actually one of the best looking Unity games I've ever seen. And if you want to see what really you can do with the art direction in terms of how it sculpts the narrative and the feel of the game, you have to check out Ori. The other aspect of Ori is that it is just an amazing platformer. It's super tight. It's also really great in terms of onboarding and scaffolding in the sense of the game design, the ability for you as a player to learn what you need to do here, how that translates into what you're going to be doing there, and it makes it a great experience for somebody who's new or experienced with platformer games.
That's pretty much it for this video. Now, by all means, these are not the only indie games made with Unity, but they happen to be 5 that I really liked and I wanted to call out. So if you think of any other games that are made with Unity that we should be talking about, make a comment down below and we'll talk about it later. In the meantime, keep making those games and we will see you at Hackingtons.